I wasn't planning to visit my son that morning. It was one of those impulsive decisions, a cup of black coffee in hand, a quiet drive across town, a father's need to see his boy. But when I walked into the ICU, everything inside me froze. Daniel lay motionless beneath the pale hospital lights, machines breathing for him, no wife, no family, just the hollow rhythm of monitors filling the room. I asked the nurse where everyone was. She looked at the floor. The doctor avoided my eyes. That's when the old instincts I thought I'd buried came alive again. Something wasn't right. My wife and my daughter-in-law had both vanished, and no one seemed eager to explain why. A chill ran down my spine as I realized this wasn't an accident or coincidence. This was silence, calculated and deliberate. And before the day ended, that silence would beg me to stop. But I wouldn't. The smell of disinfectant clung to everything, the walls, the sheets, even the air I breathed. I'd spent years in hospitals during my service, but nothing prepared me for seeing my son like that. Daniel had always been the strongest of my two boys, the one who never called for help, the one who insisted he could handle anything. But now, he was pale, fragile, connected to wires and tubes, machines hissing and beeping in rhythm with his pulse. I stood there, gripping the paper cup in my hand until it crumpled. "How long has he been like this?" I asked the nurse quietly. She hesitated. "Since last night, sir. They brought him in around 10. Head trauma, some internal bleeding. We stabilized him, but he hasn't regained consciousness yet." "Where's his wife? Or anyone from his family?" I asked. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The nurse's eyes darted toward the door before she replied. "His wife signed the admission forms but left shortly after. She hasn't been back." "Left?" I repeated. "Why would she leave?" No answer. The nurse only looked away. I'd seen that kind of silence before, the kind people used when they didn't want to lie but couldn't tell the truth either. I walked to Daniel's bedside and brushed my fingers against his hand. It was cold, limp, lifeless. A bruise stretched along his temple, purple and swollen. He'd been through something violent, too violent for a simple accident. The doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Dar. Cooper, mid-40s, kind face, but his eyes told another story. "Mr. Bennett," he greeted me with that calm, measured tone doctors use when they're hiding something behind professionalism. "Tell me what really happened," I said. He flipped through the chart. "Your son's injuries suggest a fall, possibly from a height. There were traces of alcohol in his system, but not enough to cause unconsciousness." "That's not Daniel," I snapped. "He doesn't drink, not since college." Dar. Cooper hesitated again. "That's what the paramedics said too. But the report indicates he was found on the ground near your old family property, the one you sold last year." That made no sense. Daniel hadn't been near that property in months. And that land. It was where my wife and I had buried things we didn't talk about, memories, mistakes, things better left untouched. "Who called the ambulance?" I asked. He flipped to another page. "A neighbor. No name listed. The number was disconnected when we tried to verify." I could feel my pulse pounding behind my ears. "Doctor, where's my wife?" "Evelyn Bennett. She should be here." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. "She left earlier this morning," he finally said. "She asked that you not be disturbed until she returned." "Returned from where?" No reply. I looked him dead in the eye. "Dar. Cooper, you know something. I can see it. I've seen that look on soldiers before they talk themselves into a lie. You're holding back." He exhaled slowly, his professional mask cracking just enough for me to catch the fear underneath. "Mr. Bennett, all I can tell you is that there are complications. Your wife insisted we keep certain information private. It's in the record. Private. My wife, Evelyn, had never kept anything private from me, not for 40 years of marriage. Until now. I turned back to Daniel, my hand trembling slightly as I brushed his hair from his forehead. You hang on, son, I whispered. We've both survived worse. The machines continued their steady rhythm, indifferent to my promise. Somewhere behind me, Dar. Cooper's shoes squeaked softly against the linoleum as he left the room. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't standing in a hospital room. I was standing in a crime scene. By the time I drove home that evening, the hospital's sterile chill had followed me. It clung to my clothes, to my thoughts, like the ghost of something unfinished. The sun had already dipped behind the trees when I pulled into the driveway of our old colonial house on Maple Hill Road. It looked the same as always: white paint, trimmed hedges, the porch light Evelyn insisted we leave on every night. But when I stepped inside, the silence hit differently. Our house had never been quiet. Evelyn was the kind of woman who filled every space with sound music, humming, the rustle of papers. Tonight, there was nothing. I walked through the living room, setting my keys down on the marble table. That's when I noticed something strange. The walls felt bare. Every family photograph that had once lined the hallway gone. The silver frames, the wedding portrait, the picture of Daniel holding his newborn son, even the photo of Evelyn and me on our anniversary, all missing. Only the faint outlines on the wallpaper remained where the frames had hung for decades. My stomach tightened. I went to the study, where Evelyn kept her files, her papers, her endless collection of family albums. The cabinet drawers were half open, some folders missing. My first thought was burglary, but nothing else had been taken. The jewelry boxes were untouched. The safe, locked. Then I noticed something on the desk, a faint ring of moisture, like someone had set down a glass of wine in a hurry. And next to it, a single torn photograph. I picked it up. It was the corner of a family picture, Daniel's hand, resting on someone's shoulder. Evelyn's. No, the blouse fabric didn't match hers. I flipped it over. On the back, written in Evelyn's handwriting, were 3 words that made my pulse quicken. He must not know. The phrase hit like a punch. Know what? I sat heavily in the leather chair, turning the photo over again and again, trying to piece together the image. Why erase every photo? Why this message? A knock at the door startled me. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Hill. She was holding a grocery bag and looked uneasy. Arthur, she began softly, I heard about Daniel. I just wanted to say I'm praying for him. Thank you, I said. Have you seen Evelyn today? Her lips pressed tight. She came by early this morning. She and Lydia were arguing in the driveway. It got loud. Lydia? I repeated. Our daughter-in-law. Mrs. Hill nodded slowly. They left together in Evelyn's car around 8. I thought maybe they were headed to the hospital. I forced a small smile. Thank you, Ruth. She left, and I locked the door behind her. Then I went straight to the mantel drawer where Evelyn kept spare drives and memory cards. Most were there except one. The most recent. The one labeled, Family 2024. That absence said more than any argument could. I sank back into the chair, clutching the torn photo. The words echoed again in my head, he must not know. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then went out, leaving the house in half shadow. And in that silence, a thought came to me, cold and absolute. My wife wasn't hiding from grief. She was hiding from the truth. Morning came without rest. I'd spent the night sitting in the study, the torn photograph still on the desk in front of me. Every hour that passed without word from Evelyn or Lydia stretched like wire pulling tighter around my chest. When the clock struck 6, I made coffee strong enough to burn and drove to Lydia's townhouse across town. It was the kind of suburban place Daniel had picked for her: quiet, neat lawns, white fences, a perfect lie of normalcy. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Curtains drawn. Mail stacked at the door. I rang the bell twice. Nothing. I checked the doorknob locked. But I'd been a soldier, a father, and once, an investigator. Locked doors didn't stop me before. I found the spare key Lydia kept behind a garden stone, same place she'd hidden it for Daniel. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt stale, too still, like a place abandoned in a hurry. Coffee cups on the counter. A chair slightly pushed out. The faint scent of her perfume still lingering, mixed with the metallic tang of fear. I called out. "Lydia?" "It's Arthur." No reply. The house wasn't ransacked. It was cleaned. Too clean. Family photos gone here too, but in their place blank frames. It was as if someone had tried to erase every trace of Daniel again. I moved through the hallway, my hand brushing along the wall, stopping at the door of her bedroom. I opened it and froze. The bed was stripped bare, mattress halfway off the frame. On the nightstand sat a stack of envelopes burned halfway through in a metal tray. Someone had tried to destroy them but stopped midway. I picked up one of the half-burned pages. The writing was Evelyn's. "You promised this would end after the boy." The boy. Daniel. I found another letter, only fragments legible. "He'll ask questions, you know how he is, we can't let him." The rest was ash. My pulse began to pound. Evelyn and Lydia were connected in something much deeper than grief or fear. In the corner of the room, I spotted a small trash bin. Inside, torn papers, one piece printed with a clinic logo. I smoothed it out carefully, reading through the wrinkles and burn marks. Paternity test confidential. Names, Daniel Bennett / Ethan Hale. Result, 0% probability of biological relation. The page trembled in my hands. Ethan Hale. That name was decades old, an old colleague of mine from my military days, a man Evelyn once knew far too well before I married her. No. It couldn't be. I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to breathe. My mind raced backward, through years of little oddities: Evelyn's distance when Daniel was born, her refusal to talk about certain periods of her life, the way she sometimes looked at our son with something closer to guilt than pride. Could it be? Could Daniel not be mine? I sank to my knees beside the bin, the test crumpled in my fist. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me, my heartbeat echoing like footsteps down an empty hallway. That's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, hushed and trembling. "Mr. Bennett, stop looking. Please. You don't understand what's at stake." "Who is this?" "Someone who doesn't want anyone else to die." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, the faint reflection of my face on the black screen. First the doctor's silence. Then the missing photographs. Now this. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into something planned, something that began long before Daniel ever landed in that ICU bed. As I stood, I noticed the blinds twitch. A shadow moved outside, too deliberate to be wind. Someone was watching me. And for the first time in years, I reached for the pistol I'd locked away since retirement. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about survival. The hospital looked different when you entered it with suspicion in your blood. Every whisper in the corridor sounded like a warning. Every nurse's glance seemed rehearsed. I'd spent a lifetime reading faces, and that morning, everyone looked like they were carrying a secret. I went straight to Dr. Cooper's office. The blinds were half closed, his desk stacked with folders, and a faint hum came from the computer left running. He looked up as I entered, startled but trying to keep his composure. "Mr. Bennett," he said cautiously, "visiting hours." "I'm not here for visiting hours," I cut in. "I'm here for answers." He leaned back, folding his hands. "We've already discussed your son's condition. Nothing has changed." "That's the problem," I said, lowering my voice. "Nothing changes because someone wants it that way. You're not telling me everything." He exhaled sharply. "Sir, I can't discuss private medical details without authorization." My patience snapped. "Authorization?" I barked. "I'm his father. You think I don't have the right to know what's happening to my own son?" The door cracked open behind me. A nurse peeked in, eyes darting nervously toward Cooper. He gave her a small nod, dismissal or warning, I couldn't tell. When she left, he said quietly, "This is not as simple as you think." I stepped closer. "Then make it simple." He hesitated, then pulled a folder from the drawer. It was labeled Bennett, Daniel restricted access in red ink. "There are tests that don't match a typical trauma case," he said carefully. "Chemical traces in his blood. Synthetic compounds. Something we haven't seen in over a decade." "What kind of compounds?" He looked at me, and in that moment I saw the recognition, knew who I used to be. "You were military intelligence once, weren't you? You know what those compounds are capable of." I froze. "Nerve inhibitors." He nodded. "Slow acting. Precise. Designed to simulate a natural collapse. Someone gave it to him deliberately. The concentration matches exposure, not ingestion." "Exposure?" I repeated. "You mean it was applied externally?" "Yes. Likely absorbed through skin contact." I felt my throat tighten. Evelyn's lipstick kisses on Daniel's cheek from the night of his accident flashed through my mind. The scent of her perfume, sweet and sharp like almonds and antiseptic. "Who else has access to this file?" I asked. "Only myself, your wife, and the hospital director." My stomach dropped. "My wife requested access yesterday morning," Cooper confirmed, lowering his voice. "She told us it was urgent to protect her family's privacy." She seemed terrified. I could barely hear my own breathing. "Where did she go after?" He shook his head. "She mentioned visiting your daughter-in-law." That confirmed it. Evelyn and Lydia together again, tangled in the same shadow. I took the folder and walked out, ignoring Cooper's protests. If he called security, I didn't care. I'd faced worse than hospital administrators. In the elevator, I flipped through the files. There were lab results, scans, and one sheet marked confidential, eyes only. Inside it was a single image, an old military chemical signature from an archived case dated 1988. My own signature was at the bottom of that page. I'd led that investigation 37 years ago. A classified incident involving stolen biochemical agents. The suspect's name, Ethan Hale. My blood ran cold. Hale had vanished back then. I'd assumed he was dead. Evelyn had cried when I told her I was closing the file. Now his name was in my son's medical report. I gripped the folder so tightly my knuckles turned white. My wife had sworn that part of our past was buried. She'd begged me never to bring it up again, saying it would destroy the family. But it wasn't buried. It was Olivine, our son's veins. When the elevator doors opened, I walked straight into the hallway, past nurses, past security, not stopping until I reached Daniel's room. He looked the same, peaceful, unaware, too still. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "You're caught in something old, son," I whispered. "Something your mother and I should have ended long ago." A vibration buzzed in my pocket, another message from an unknown number. Stop digging, Arthur. You're not ready for what you'll find. I read it twice, then looked at Daniel. His monitor beeped steadily. Somewhere deep inside that rhythm, I imagined his voice whispering back to me. Find it anyway, Dad. I straightened, grabbed the folder, and walked out. Whatever secret my wife and daughter-in-law were protecting, it wasn't about guilt anymore. It was about survival. And if Ethan Hale was back from the dead, then this time, I intended to finish what I started. The drive to the lake house felt longer than it should have. The clouds hung low, the sky bruised and heavy with rain, and the narrow country road twisted through pines like a secret that didn't want to be found. That house by Lake Marin had been Evelyn's sanctuary for years, our retreat, the place she went when she needed peace. I'd always respected her privacy, but now I realized that peace had a price. I parked the car a few hundred feet from the gate and moved the rest of the way on foot. The gravel crunched under my boots, too loud in the quiet. A light flickered in the window, someone was inside. I approached slowly, staying in the shadows. Through the glass, I saw two silhouettes in the living room. Evelyn stood near the fireplace, her shoulders tight, her hands trembling. Lydia sat on the couch, head in her hands, sobbing. I edged closer, my breath fogging the window. Then I heard Evelyn's voice, low, sharp, breaking. I told you this would happen if you kept pushing. Lydia's reply came out between tears. He deserves to know the truth, Evelyn. He's his father. He's not his father. Evelyn snapped. He never was. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I stumbled back from the window, heart hammering. The pieces clicked into place with cruel precision, the DNA test, the silence, the old name resurfacing after decades. Ethan Hale. He wasn't just some ghost from my service days. He was Daniel's biological father. And Evelyn had kept it from me all these years. For a moment, I couldn't move. The rain started, tapping against the glass in soft, mocking rhythm. I wanted to turn around, to leave, to pretend I hadn't heard, but that wasn't who I was. I'd faced insurgents, interrogations, death itself. I could face this too. I stepped up to the door, knocked once, and pushed it open before anyone could answer. The two women froze. Evelyn's face went pale, Lydia's eyes widened in shock. Arthur, Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. You shouldn't be here. Apparently, shouldn't be here for 40 years, I said. Mind explaining why my son isn't my son? Lydia stood, tears streaking down her cheeks. Please, don't make this worse. We didn't mean for any of this to. Sit down, I said sharply. She obeyed. Evelyn tried to compose herself. Arthur, listen to me. No, you listen, I interrupted, slamming the folder onto the table. I've seen the reports. Daniel was poisoned, Evelyn. Not in an accident. That compound came from Hale's experiments, the ones I investigated decades ago. You knew it. You covered it up. Her lips quivered. I was trying to protect him. Protect who? Daniel? Or your secret? Lightning flashed outside, lighting her face for an instant. Guilt, shame, fear. I made a mistake, she whispered. Ethan came back years ago, after you retired. He wanted to see Daniel. He said he just wanted to talk. I told him to stay away, but he didn't listen. And Lydia? I asked, turning to my daughter-in-law. How does she fit in? Lydia shook her head. Ethan approached me too. I didn't know who he was at first. He told me he was family, that he could help Daniel with a new business deal. He said Evelyn already knew everything. I stared at both of them. So you both trusted a ghost. And now Daniel's in a coma because of it. Evelyn stepped forward, tears finally spilling. He threatened to tell you everything if I didn't help him move money from Daniel's accounts. I thought if I complied, he'd leave. Then Lydia got involved. She thought she could outsmart him. I didn't know he'd hurt Daniel. Lydia cried. He said it was just to scare him into signing papers. He said. You believed him, I said coldly. You both did. The room fell silent except for the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Evelyn sank into a chair, her shoulders trembling. Arthur, I never meant for any of this to touch you. You've spent your life fighting battles. I didn't want you to fight another one. You didn't give me a choice, I said. I looked around the room, the wine glasses on the table, half empty. One of them had a faint oily sheen on the rim. I picked it up, sniffed. Bitter almond. The same scent I'd caught in Daniel's hospital room on Evelyn's perfume. Jesus, Evelyn, I whispered. Was it you? Her face crumpled. No, I didn't poison him. Ethan did. He blamed me for keeping Daniel from him. Said if he couldn't have his son, no one would. And where is he now? She looked up slowly. He's coming back tonight. He wants the rest of the money. That was all I needed to hear. I walked to the door, rain soaking the steps outside. You're both staying here. Lock the doors. Don't move. If Hale shows up, you call me. Evelyn reached for my arm. Arthur, please, don't go after him alone. I turned back, eyes hard. You brought him back into our lives. I'll be the one to end it. Thunder rolled across the lake, echoing like artillery fire. As I got into my car and pulled away from the house, I saw their silhouettes framed in the window, two women bound together by guilt, fear, and a lie that had finally come due. I didn't know if I was heading toward justice or another grave mistake. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't just a husband or a father anymore. I was the man who'd been lied to for half a lifetime. And I was done forgiving. Rain hammered the windshield like static as I drove through the backroads toward town. My headlights cut through the fog, pale cones slicing the darkness. Every mile closer to Ethan Hale felt like walking back through a war zone I thought I'd buried decades ago. I found a parking lot across from the old lumber warehouse, a place Hale and I had once used for covert drop meetings during my service years. The irony wasn't lost on me. History had a cruel sense of humor. It was just past midnight when my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. You want answers, Arthur? Come alone. 15 minutes. No address, no instructions, just coordinates. I recognized them immediately, Pier 17, Lake Marin. The same lake where my wife was hiding. I started the engine again and drove. The pier lights flickered weakly through the rain, reflected on the black surface of the lake like broken glass. I parked a few yards away and got out, keeping my coat collar high and my pistol tucked beneath it. Ethan Hale was waiting under the canopy, looking almost unchanged from the man I'd last seen 37 years ago. Older, yes, but still carrying that same calm arrogance, like he owned the air around him. His hair had gone white at the temples, his smile sharp as ever. Arthur Bennett, he said, his voice smooth as oil. Still punctual. Still predictable. I stepped closer. You should have stayed dead, Hale. He chuckled softly. You tried hard enough back then, didn't you? But death's overrated. People forget that sometimes survival is the crueler punishment. What do you want? He tilted his head. What I've always wanted. My son. Daniel's not your son, I snapped. He's mine. Biology disagrees, Hale replied, pulling a folded paper from his coat, a copy of the same paternity test I'd found in Lydia's house. I didn't need proof to know. He has my eyes, my mind, my temper. He was never yours, Arthur. Evelyn just let you believe that lie because you made her feel safe. The words hit like bullets, but I didn't flinch. I'd already bled once for this truth. You poisoned him, I said evenly. You put him in that bed. His grin faltered for a second. No. I gave him a chance to wake up. You see, the dose wasn't fatal. It was meant to keep him out of the way until his mother and wife cooperated. Cooperated with what? Transfers. Documents. Inheritance shifts. Daniel's life insurance is worth a fortune after his new policy adjustment. He paused, eyes glinting. You should be proud. Your family built something very valuable. I'm just taking my share. You're a parasite, Hale. He smirked. And you're a fool. Always were. You think this is about money? It's about what was stolen from me, my son, my legacy, my name. I took a step closer, my hand brushing the grip of my gun. You lost that right when you ran experiments that killed civilians. You weren't a father. You were a weapon pretending to be human. For a moment, something like anger cracked through his composure. And you were the man who stole my family and my career. Do you have any idea what that does to a man? I didn't answer. The truth was, I did. That was the part that hurt most. He exhaled slowly, collecting himself. It's over now, Arthur. Evelyn made her deal. She gave me what I wanted. By dawn, she'll be gone and so will I. She didn't make a deal, I said quietly. She called me. For the first time, he blinked a flicker of doubt. You're lying. Am I? I said, stepping closer. She told me you were coming back for the money. She told me everything. His eyes narrowed. Then she chose her side. He reached into his coat. I didn't wait to see what came out. Instinct took over the part of me the military had trained and age hadn't dulled. I drew my gun and fired once into the air. The echo rolled across the lake. Don't. I warned. Whatever you think you're doing, walk away from it now. Daniel's alive, Hale. You didn't kill him. That made him laugh. Alive? For now, maybe. But I have friends still inside that hospital, old man. And if you keep pushing, maybe his machine stopped working tonight. My blood ran cold. You're bluffing. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward me. Live footage appeared: Daniel's hospital room, dimly lit, with a shadow moving near the monitors. Call them off, I said. He shrugged. Make me. Then a gunshot cracked through the rain, but it didn't come from me. Hale's shoulder jerked, the phone slipping from his hand. He stumbled backward, cursing. From the darkness behind the boathouse, Evelyn emerged soaked, shaking, holding a pistol in both hands. Stay away from my family, she said, her voice trembling but steady. Hale staggered, clutching his wound. You were supposed to wait. I waited 40 years, she said. No more. He lunged at her, and I fired twice. Hale dropped to the ground, the rain washing red streaks into the wooden planks beneath him. Silence. Only the sound of rain and Evelyn's sobs. I lowered my weapon slowly. She stared at Hale's body, tears and rain blending on her face. He was right, she whispered. I lied to you. Daniel isn't yours. But you're still the only father he's ever known. I stepped closer, my heart a storm of rage and grief. And you kept that secret because you thought it would protect him. She nodded weakly. I was wrong. I looked down at Hale's lifeless form, the man who'd haunted my past, who'd poisoned my son, who'd destroyed everything he touched. It's over, I said quietly. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because the screen of Hale's phone was still glowing, and in the live feed, the shadow in Daniel's hospital room was still moving. And that meant someone else was still there. Someone who hadn't finished the job. Evelyn's hands were still trembling when I took the phone from Hale's lifeless grasp. The screen was slick with rain and blood, but the image was clear. Daniel's hospital room, grainy, dim, with that same shadow moving across the monitors. I zoomed in. The figure wasn't a nurse. It was a man, heavy-set, wearing hospital scrubs with no ID badge, a mask covering half his face. He was unplugging something. Jesus, I muttered. He's not bluffing. Evelyn's voice cracked behind me. What is he doing? He's finishing what Hale started. I called Dar. Cooper immediately. It rang twice before he answered, his voice tight. Mr. Bennett, what's going on? I heard gunfire near the lake. Forget the lake, I snapped. Listen carefully. There's someone in Daniel's room. He's not staff. Lock the ICU wing down right now. What? Are you certain? Do it, damn it. He must have heard something in my tone because he didn't argue. The line went dead as he ran to act. I turned to Evelyn. She was pale, soaked, her mascara bleeding into gray streaks down her face. You're coming with me. She hesitated. Arthur, I can't face him. Not like this. This isn't about you, I said, starting for the car. This is about our son. The drive back to the hospital was chaos. Rain turned the roads into mirrors, every headlight a blade of white slicing through the dark. Evelyn sat silent beside me, clutching her coat like a shield. You said Hale had people on the inside, I said finally. Who? She swallowed hard. I don't know. He mentioned someone who owed him from the military days. He said he could make things happen from anywhere. Names, Evelyn. She hesitated, then whispered, Cooper. The word hit harder than a bullet. Dar. Cooper. The calm, professional doctor who'd avoided eye contact, who'd delayed answers, who'd let my wife access classified files without a question. I pressed harder on the gas. When we pulled up to the hospital entrance, 2 security guards were standing outside, talking quietly under the overhang. I showed them my old credentials, military badge still polished from the years that mattered. ICU. Now. They didn't argue. We rushed through the corridors, the smell of antiseptic and electricity burning my throat. Alarms were starting to flash near the upper floor's code red. I could hear distant voices, panicked shouting. At the end of the hall, Daniel's door stood half open. I motioned Evelyn to stay behind me and stepped inside. The shadow from the video was still there now, solid, real, moving with deliberate calm. He was disconnecting the 4-line, 1 tube at a time. Step away from him, I ordered, my voice steady. The man froze, then turned. For a heartbeat, I thought I was looking at a stranger. Then the fluorescent light hit his face, and my stomach dropped. Dar. Cooper. Except the calm in his eyes was gone. What I saw now was resignation. Arthur, he said softly, almost pleading. You shouldn't be here. You were working with Hale, I said. He sighed. Not by choice. You don't understand what that man was capable of. Try me. He looked down at Daniel's still body. Ethan Hale saved my daughter's life, once paid for her surgery. I owed him. He came to me last year, said he needed access to medical research for a patient. I didn't know it was Daniel until it was too late. When I tried to stop him, he threatened my family. Tonight was supposed to end it. By killing my son. No. Cooper shouted, voice breaking. By staging a cardiac event, transferring him to another facility under a false name. Hale wanted to disappear him, make it look like an accident so he could claim the policy. But Hale's dead now, isn't he? Yes, I said quietly. Then let me fix this, he said, desperation spilling out of him. Let me bring Daniel out of sedation. I can reverse what's been done. Evelyn stepped into the doorway, tears streaming. You're lying. You've been lying since the day he came here. Cooper's gaze flicked to her. Evelyn, you helped him. You signed the authorization forms. She shook her head, backing away. I didn't know it would go this far. None of us did, Cooper whispered. The monitors began to shriek, Daniel's heart rate dropping. I moved before I thought. I shoved Cooper aside and grabbed the manual pump. Tell me what to do. Restart the 4 linies, there. Cooper barked, moving to the other side of the bed. Keep pressure steady. Don't let the oxygen drop below 70. We worked in sync, silent except for the frantic beeping and rain slamming against the windows. Evelyn stood frozen, one hand over her mouth, the other gripping the doorframe. After what felt like a lifetime, the heart monitor steadied one strong, clean beep. Then another. Cooper sagged in relief, his eyes glistening. He's back. I exhaled, chest aching. Daniel's eyelids flickered slightly. Evelyn sobbed. Oh my God. But my relief was short-lived. Because as Cooper reached to adjust a tube, I saw the faint needle mark on his wrist, fresh, still bleeding. And beside his dropped ID badge, a small glass vial half filled with clear liquid, the same compound that had nearly killed my son. He saw me notice, and the mask fell away completely. You don't understand, he whispered. Hale wasn't the only one. There are others. I didn't let him finish. The gun in my hand was steady. Back away, doctor. His mouth trembled. You can't stop it, Arthur. This goes higher than either of us. Maybe, I said, eyes locked on his, but it ends with me. He raised his hands slowly, and for a moment, I thought he'd surrender. But then he lunged, not for me, but for Daniel. The shot echoed through the ICU, shattering glass and silence. Cooper collapsed, eyes wide, shock frozen on his face. Evelyn screamed. I dropped the gun, my knees giving out beside the bed. The smell of gunpowder mixed with antiseptic. The monitors still beeped steadily, proof that Daniel was alive. Evelyn knelt beside me, clutching my arm. Arthur, what have we done? I looked at her, my voice barely a whisper. What we had to. Outside, the sirens were growing louder. For the first time that night, I let myself breathe. Daniel was alive. But Hale had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. And somewhere out there, the people behind all of this were already erasing every trace that pointed back to them. Morning light crept through the hospital blinds, soft and gold, touching Daniel's face like a blessing. The storm had passed some time before dawn, leaving behind that damp, heavy silence that follows chaos, the kind of silence where everything broken finally stops fighting to stay together. Daniel was awake. His eyes fluttered open hours ago, dazed, confused, but alive. The first thing he saw was me, not Evelyn, not the nurses, not the machines, just me sitting in the same chair I'd occupied since the first night. Dad, he whispered, his voice rough and weak. That one word was enough to undo me. I reached for his hand, careful not to disturb the 4-line. Easy, son. You're safe. He frowned. What happened? Where's Mom? I glanced toward the hallway, where Evelyn sat alone on a bench, her hands clasped tight like she was praying for a god she'd stopped believing in years ago. She's here, I said softly. We both are. He looked at me, then not just looked, but searched. The way a son looks at his father when he knows something deeper than pain is hiding behind his eyes. You're not telling me everything, he said. I smiled sadly. He'd inherited that from me. No, I admitted. I'm not. 2 hours later, the police arrived. I told them everything that mattered, that Ethan Hale had broken into our lives, that he'd manipulated 2 generations of my family, and that Dr. Cooper had been part of it. I didn't mention the rest: the betrayal, the paternity, the secrets that still pulsed like open wounds. Some truths belong to the living, not the law. When the officers took Cooper's body away, I watched in silence. I'd seen enough death to know it never brought closure, only quiet. Evelyn stood beside me, her face pale, her hands trembling. "They'll find out everything, Arthur," she said. "Let them," I replied. "I'm done protecting ghosts." Her voice cracked. "And what about me?" I turned to her. "That depends. Are you ready to stop lying?" She looked down. "I lied to protect you. To protect Daniel. I thought if you knew, it would destroy everything we built." "It did," I said. "But maybe now it can start over honest, for once." She closed her eyes, tears cutting through the remnants of her mascara. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I whispered. "But you did." We stood there in silence until the sound of Daniel's voice from inside the room broke the moment. "Mom? Dad?" Evelyn hesitated, then walked toward him. For the first time in days, she didn't look afraid, just fragile, human. By evening, Daniel was stable enough to move out of intensive care. He asked to see us both together. When Evelyn entered the room, he smiled weakly. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling, "Dad told me some of it. About the people who hurt us. About how you tried to protect me." She reached for his hand. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I know. But it's over now. That's what matters." He looked at me next. "You saved me, didn't you?" I swallowed hard. "No, son. You saved yourself. I just refused to give up on you." He smiled faintly. "You never do." There was a peace in that room I hadn't felt in years. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the space where forgiveness might one day grow. Later that night, I walked outside alone. The parking lot still glistened from the rain, reflecting the hospital lights like scattered stars. I took a deep breath of cold air and let it fill my lungs. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. Just exhaustion. The truth had cost me everything: my marriage, my faith in the woman I loved, the illusion of the family I thought I'd built. But it had also given me something back. Daniel's life. A second chance. Maybe that was enough. I looked up at the faint dawn breaking on the horizon and spoke quietly, to no one in particular. "I came here to visit my son," I said. "And I found the truth instead." Maybe that's what fathers are meant to do, to keep digging until the truth is all that's left. The wind stirred through the trees, soft and cold. Somewhere inside, Daniel laughed, that small, steady sound of life returning. And for the first time since all this began, I let myself believe we might survive the truth after all. Because no matter how dark the secret, love, real, imperfect, painful love, was the one thing that refused to die.